Hi everybody, it's Nancy and I am back with another Lavinia stamps video for Lavinia World, and today I wanted to play with this mermaid and her name is Althea. And I have not used her yet, and I just keep thinking, you know, you guys know how much I love Sebastian and I love Jalandar, and I have a lot of videos on those guys, but I have not played with Althea yet. And I have some other stamps here. So we have this little fish that'll be her friend. He is called Mini Fish. And then we have all kinds of greenery here that we're going to bring in. And I like this sentiment that says, dream higher than the sky and deeper than the ocean. So we're going to put the stamps aside while we make our background. And for our background, we are going to use the Lavinia Stamps Multifarious card. And this is just a really thick card. It says 300 GSM, which is basically like, it's like 110, I think. 110 pound cardstock. So this is the white. It also comes in cream. And it's just a really heavy duty, great cardstock for inking on. We'll be able to put some water on it and it will hold up pretty nicely. So I'm just going to cut this at 5 for right now, because if I make this a 5 by 7, we'll see how it looks. I'll probably cut it down to 4 3/4, but we'll do 5 for now. Okay. And I'm going to be using my brush show powder. So we're going to start with making the background. Let me grab some paper towels. And all you do is very freeing is you take some water, spritz it down, and we're just going to add our brush show powders. And the more water you add, the more you spritz it down, the more that color is going to move around, okay? I have a little bit darker, which is Prussian blue. We'll add a little bit of that towards the bottom here. I don't really want too much of that because it's a really dark blue and I don't want it to oversaturate. Let's see if I have a little bit of green we can put at the bottom. I also have some of these Pixie powders and Nouveau Shimmer powders. If I can find them, I'll link those down below for you as well. I don't use too much of these because there's a lot of mica in these and it just overpowers what I'm trying to do. So I don't use too much of those. I'm going to add some of this lime green in here, just a little bit, just to give it some pops of color. And then I'm going to take this moss green and put that towards the bottom edges, because if that's where our seaweed is going to be, that's where we want it to be green. And that's pretty much it. Maybe a tiny little puff of Aqua Lagoon, just a little bit in the middle here. But like I said, this stuff it just spews mica everywhere. I'm doing very fine little shots there because I don't want it to be over shimmery or powdery. Okay. So now we just spritz all this with water, let all of that water run around. We can take a paintbrush to it if we want it to be a little bit more fluid. See, there we have all that green, which is great because if that's the seabed. All right, I like how the dark green is at the bottom and on the sides. And we have that beautiful teal wash in the middle there. This I want to lighten up at the top, so I'm going to add more water. And anywhere that it's just too much color, you don't like it, it's too saturated, you can go in with your paper towel and kind of lift that. So right here in the center almost, I can lift some of that color. So when I stamp her, she's not going to be too washed out with all that color. So I like that, and I'm just going to take my heat tool and dry this, and I will pause it and come back so you guys don't have to listen to all of that. Okay guys, I've dried that with my heat tool, and I did a couple of little water splatters on there and lifted those with paper towel, and then I've cut this panel down to 5 by 7. So now we are ready to begin stamping. I'm going to bring in my full-size Misty here. I have a little piece of sticky grid stuck to my foam here, so that will hopefully keep this a little straight, because it is a little bit warped. Let me put my little magnet in the corner there. Okay, let's bring Althea in here. Look at that. Perfect fit. Okay, so we're going to put her right in the center. Okay, now what color do we want to make her? I think like a dark, maybe a purple or a dark ethereal blue. Hold on, I have all my VersaFine Clair inks here. Maybe medieval blue. It's like a dark purple navy. Because we're going to be doing the plants, and they're going to be in green, right? So yeah, let's do her in medieval blue. Okay. And I like the VersaFine Clairs for this because we are stamping over, you know, this watercolored paper now. And so this ink, being a pigment ink, sits on top. So it's going to be vibrant. It's going to be bright. It's going to give us a lot of good coverage over that. And I am using the Misty because I don't want to have any spots that I miss, especially since this is such a large stamp. Pretty good. See a couple spots there. I'd like to just get one more impression. So we're going to ink it up again. Okay, she looks amazing. Now this ink is a pigment ink, so it does take a second to dry. So while that's doing that, I am going to clean my stamp. All right, and now we're just going to add her little friend, add some greenery, and this is pretty much done. It does not take a lot. Our little fish. He's called Mini Fish. Just happens to be looking in the right direction. Let's see here. We certainly have some seaweed, so we can put those on there. You can probably get 3 stamps stamped at the same time here. Move this panel up because some of these stamps are going to hang off the bottom. So I'm going to tuck her in the top right corner, put my magnets back on, put my fish back on, and now I can stamp some of the seaweed off of the page a little bit, so that I can do varying lengths of the seaweed using the same stamp. So we'll do a little bit off here, and we'll do this one pretty high up. And then we have some other ones that are a little bit smaller. We'll stamp that one and then we'll come back. Maybe we'll do this one over here. And we'll come back and add the rest. Okay, so we have our fish and our 2 seaweeds. And the smaller seaweed is called sea algae. And the larger one is called marine kelp. Okay, so I want to do... For the marine kelp, I'm going to go very bright with the green oasis. That's the smaller one. And if it's not dark enough, we can always go in and put more color in. And then for the larger one, I'm going to do Shady Lane, which is a medium green. There is a darker green, which is Rainforest, but we'll see how these look. And then for our little fish friend, I want him to be bright, so I'm going to make him red. We're going to make him tulip red. He is a bright, bright fish. Okay, so we'll stamp the kelp, the algae, the fish, and see how they all look. Okay, that all looks pretty good. And I'm going to go in again, because it's a pigment ink, I really want it to pop off the page. I'm going to ink each one up again. Okay, see how much brighter they look? Just a spot right here. There we go. See, all 3 at once. Now I can clean these off and add some new ones. Okay, now our little fish can't be the only fish there, so I'm going to add some in the background using the Morning Mist, which is a gray. So it's almost like it's a shadow of them in the background. You can do this before or after. Just going to add some kind of back here, like off the page. There we go. So add a couple of those guys. Now I do want to move this kelp a little closer. Take, or sea algae I should say. And again, going to do the bright green oasis for that one. Good. I don't need multiples on that one because I kind of want it to look like it's in the background. But I want to fill this whole bottom like it's the sea floor with a whole bunch of, you know, kelp and plants and things like that. And I have quite a few of those different styles. So we have this one called Sea Flower. Okay, the sea flower, I was hoping to do it in, let's try the Lavinia Sundance. I don't know if it will pop because it's yellow on top of blue. Hopefully if it does, it'll really look cool. If not, we might have to go with a different color. Let's try it. Yeah, it kind of gets lost. Okay, so that's what I was afraid of. So we'll go in with a different color. You can always go darker. Just remember that. You can always go darker. Can't lighten it, but you can always go darker. So let's try the Summertime, which is like an orange color. and see how that looks. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I'm not unhappy with that. And now we're bringing some color in. And again, I like to go in with some gel pens or color pencils or markers and just highlight those. So we'll go back and add some more of that in too. I'm going back in with the kelp, and I want to do some kind of background kelp, so I'm going to stamp off. I think I am okay to pull this off of here now. Our biggest image is already stamped, so we can do individual stamping now. So we can put this guy away. And for that, I'm going to take the rainforest. Just have some scrap paper on the side here. Ink that up. Stamp that off and then bring it in here. So we get this lighter impression, so it looks like it's more in the background instead of up front. And then it's not going to be so overpowering. So ink it up and then bring it in here. So that's where stamping off comes in handy. It's just getting a lighter impression. We're still getting the impression of the stamped image. It's just a little bit lighter, so we don't lose any of that texture. And then, of course, if I wanted a darker one, I can do a little small one right here. Right there. So it looks like those guys are in the back and that one's in the front. I'm going to add a little bit more of this sea flower. Just going to do the top. Again, inking that up in summertime. Just kind of peeking it through over here. Don't need a lot of that. Just that little pop of orange to poke through all of that green. Of course, we can always add a couple more fish. Again, stamping them off, hiding them in the background here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I am pretty happy with the way this scene is turning out. It's very easy to put together. So the last thing is just kind of adding our sentiment. And our sentiment says, dream higher than the sky and deeper than the ocean. And it's almost like she's kind of whispering that to him, right? She's just giving him some advice. Ooh, I think I like it there versus up there. And I think if I'm going to put it down here, I would like to heat emboss it. So before I do that, I need to make sure my panel is completely dry. Again, because this is a pigment ink, if your panel is not completely dry, the embossing powder is going to stick to wherever there is ink. So we need to take the heat tool to this panel again and make sure it is completely dry before we do any heat embossing. So let me bring out the heat tool and dry that again, and I will be back. Okay guys, I've dried this, but I just want to show you how you test it. Is you just take your embossing powder, and you can see, even though it's dry to the touch, it's still sticking to that. So what I'm going to do is just emboss on a separate piece of paper. So I found this little piece of teal mirror card in my stash, in my little scrap box there. So I'm going to try to stamp it on this and heat emboss it that way. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink pad. Ooh, almost dropped it. Now I do want to use my anti-static tool on this little piece of mirror card, foil card. And it's like the perfect size. And then I can just banner cut it. Now, because this is Versamark, you just want to stamp down and then lift up. You don't want to do any kind of wiggling. And then just use whatever embossing powder you have. This is just plain white embossing powder. And I do like to do a little flick just to make sure all those strays are off. Using a coffee filter to pick up any excess. And then, again, just going with like a little paintbrush and any stray pieces that still might be stuck in there. Try to get those off. Okay, and now we're going to heat this. Let me move my powder out of the way. And I want to be constantly moving the tool back and forth. Okay, and you'll see once it starts to change, you just move it across and everything will melt smoothly. If you have like dimples where it just looks uneven, put a little more heat to it and it will smooth it out. So we don't want to touch that. We want to give that a second to properly adhere and cool down. So while we're doing that, we're just going to put the lid on our embossing powder so we don't knock it over. All right, so I've also prepared a 5x7 card base. I just took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, cut it 10 inches wide, scored it at 5, and cut it 7 inches long, okay? And so my panel is exactly 5x7. If I wanted to cut it down, let me see here. Nope, it's just right. I could cut it down and give it a little bit of a frame. Because it's warped, you can also try running it through like your die cutting machine or putting some fun foam behind it. I'm just going to put a lot of glue on it. Or not, because my glue is running out. Foam tape works well as a strong adhesive too. I'm just going to put a lot of glue on here so that every surface area kind of has to stick down to something. And this glue dries fairly quick. You don't have very much wiggle time. So while that's drying, now I can decide how I want my sentiment to go. I do like to pop my sentiments up on foam tape. So I will grab some of that. And then we'll cut it and stick it down. Not straight, so I want to cut it straight. Let's give me a small border. If I go to 4.5, it actually almost fits perfectly. I'm going to do that. So I don't even have to fishtail it. We can just leave it like that and it looks pretty all on its own. I'm just going to put a big old strip of foam tape on the back. Get the backing off. Okay, dream higher than the sky and deeper than the ocean. There is a little bit of something on there. A little glue. It's okay. So there we go. There we have our Brusho watercolor background. We have Althea stamped out with her little fish friend. We added the algae. We added the underwater flowers. We added the sea kelp and wonderful sentiment. Now I will finish this off with a couple of things. I'm going to go in with a little bit of shimmer pen and color her in. And again, you can go in with gel pen and add more color. I like to add a couple of clear sequins. So we can add a couple of those in. They almost look like, you know, like bubbles in the water because they're clear. And my little pile of gel pens here. This can be as in-depth or not as you want. You can totally stop anywhere in this process and still make a beautiful card. I do like to do these little extras because I do think that they help to stand out when you're giving this card to someone or just keeping it in your own collection. This is just a silver sparkle gel pen. I'm sorry, not silver, orange. Can't tell my colors here. Of course, you can add glitter. But all you got to do is just make your background, which is pretty simple to do. And then stamp. And then if you want to add color, like I'm doing, you just go in with a color pencil or a marker or pens. You choose how much in depth you want to do with this. And these images are so beautifully drawn, you don't need to add a lot to make them pop. They really do kind of do it on their own. And I'm not, you know, like taking my time. I'm just following what's already drawn by the artist. Some of these are going to be super subtle where you're not even going to see them until it hits a certain light. And some of these, just again, depending on what kind of pen you're using, are really going to pop and stick out and look amazing. Get that bright pink gel pen. How much that really just, wow, stands out. Looks amazing on there. Okay. And I've just done the plants. I haven't even gotten into really making her pop yet. Wow, what a difference that scene looks like now. So let's take a little silver and add that into her tail. It doesn't have to be every single spot, just kind of fill it in. Maybe I go in here and just fill in a couple of spots here on her scales, so looks legitimate like scales. All right, so you get the point. Let me show you how beautiful this looks already. You can always go in and add some more detail. Look at how much that shimmer pen, the gel pens make a difference there. But this can be a very simple card with just the brush show background, stamping on your designs and go. And then you can see if you add some colors, add some sequins, it really just steps it up a notch. So I hope you had fun learning. If you have any questions, post them down below. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.